Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as we are towards the tail end of the VMO TCUK Championship here in 2023. We take, of course, to round number 9 here at Silverstone National. 3 races, as always, in store for you. Myself, Zach Sweeney, Ewan O'Leary, alongside me in the commentary booth with Mike Yao pushing all the buttons and directing the cameras. And we're here to talk you through what should be an enthralling piece of action, of course. Before we get started, let's take a run through of the championship orders, because as I said, we are into the penultimate round of the season. Things are really starting to heat up. Things are starting to get serious, and Matt Richards is the one leading the way. 313 points to his name. Dan Hurlock, of course, after missing Snetterton early on in the season, has been on a comeback drive in order to mount some sort of a challenge to the Richardson co-driver. He's in second, with Thomas O'Leary on a good run of form as well. Could he be a late challenge in this season? Callum Cripps, Ross McGregor round off the top 5, with Dan Cowell after a little bit of misfortune. Still there, though, running quite well in 6th. Callum Wilson, John Munro, Lewis Redshaw and Ryan Elliott, the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. We move our way over to the teams, of course, and, well, it looks to be a little bit more of a dominant affair, it must be said. Mainly, of course, helped to the fact that Richardson Co are obviously so quick. There they are, of course. You can see 524.5 points, which is, I'm not going to do the maths, but a little bit more than Rocket Sim Sport have got. But they are themselves in a direct fight with RSR, of course. That's a lot closer. Only 12.5 points between the two of them. DMA Racing and Clementi Motorsport round off the top 5 with Drag Racing Kings, Team Ballas, Team Butchie and Team Gartney, the 3 independent team entries there in 8th, 9th and 10th. So very much is heating up there. You can also see the schedule. Silverstone National before in a couple of weeks' time we go to Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit to round off the season on the 11th of October. Finally, though, we're going to bring in Ewan O'Leary for the broadcast. And Ewan, obviously, welcome back to the championship. It's been a few weeks since you've been able to commentate around, but have to say that it's getting to the business end of the season, and I can't wait to see how things are going to get going.
Yeah, can't wait to see how this one is going to conclude as well, because it's still pretty close in terms of maths. There's still well over 5 or 6 drivers. I think it may be 5 or 6 drivers who can still win the title from here mathematically. So it's going to be very close and very exciting right to the very end. And yeah, it's going to be fantastic. So looking forward to it. Glad to be back again, as I will be for the last 2 rounds actually. And yeah, we're in for a great end to what has been a great season so far.
I think so. It's been carnage, chaos, and an utter roller coaster all the way through. But it's been a pleasure, of course, to talk you through all of the action. And yeah, we've only got 2 rounds to go. It seems like it's flown by. I mean, we started the season all the way back. I think it was in May, sort of mid-May. And yeah, there you can see the 17th of May. Boom. I kind of know what I'm talking about sometimes. All the way back at Donington Park. And it's been a battle. And, you know, we're going to end the season in October in a couple of weeks' time. It's basically, you know, half the year basically is gone just from this championship, which is mad to think, but it's gone by in a flash because of the amazing racing that we're seeing. As I say, 3 races. We've got race 1 coming up in just a few moments time, decided by the qualifying that has just recently concluded. We'll go into race 2, which is decided off the finishing order for race from race 1, and then a spinny wheel to decide the reverse grid between 6 and 12 going into race number 3. So plenty of action on the table here, Ewan. And the circuit itself, to be fair, Silverstone National, of course, we're not at the full Grand Prix loop. We do Maggots and then kind of not really make it to Beckett's. We turn right and we go down the Wellington Straight towards Brooklyn. So plenty more time spent in a straight line, which should, in theory, keep these drivers nice and close.
Should keep them very close, yeah. The slipstream is going to be quite a factor around here, especially down the Wellington Straight, which is the longest straight, really, and provides the best overtaking opportunity down in towards Brooklands, although it's not a foregone conclusion down there, because it does switch back the other way again at Lovefield. By the way, the only left-hander really on this circuit. It's a very simplistic one to look at on the track map, but it does have more nuance to it than that. It does have more difficulty within it than that, and so yeah, it's going to require a lot of practice, and it has done for those in the week. And now we're ready to go racing as well in these last 2 rounds. Of course, it's the first and only time that we go to Silverstone in this schedule. And yeah, it's for round 9 of our championship. So yeah, big important race for everybody who wants to get close to Matt Richards, really. He's got a big lead in the championship now, and they're going to have to start cutting that down very quickly if they want to be involved by the time we get to the finale in the not too distant future.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, Matt Richards, he's just been so consistent. I mean, in terms of pure stats, Matt Richards and Dan Herlock, they've got 5 wins apiece, and then Matt Richards has got 1 more podium on 11 relative to Dan Herlock. And, you know, throughout the season, they've been just sort of the 2 that have set the standard. They've been the benchmark for the majority of the season so far. It's a shame, obviously, that Dan Herlock wasn't able to participate in Snetterton, but that's just how a championship goes. You have to be in it to win it, essentially. And to be fair to Dan Herlock, he has sort of sparked a resurgence, but I think the turning point in this championship was a couple of weeks ago when we went to Donington Park. In total, it was only 19 points that he was able to muster up throughout the duration of the evening, which, you know, when you think about it, isn't really a lot, especially when Matt Richards was able to take a win and get himself inside the points as well over the course of race 1. A no score in race 3 definitely helped Matt Richards ever so slightly. Didn't help Matt Richards, it helped Dan Herlock ever so slightly in order to sort of, you know, give Dan Hurlock something to think about, as there you can see the 450 races for, of course, the championship. That is a lot for Matt Richards. So he'd would like to round it off with 3 wins, but well, you know, we'll wait and see how successful he's going to be on that endeavour. But that's a lot of races, Ewan.
It is, and a lot of driving as well. But yeah, I mean, it just shows that all of those races sort of count for something at this end of a season. Really, you want that load of experience and the ability to just keep on with that and keep winning as he has done. Now, at least keep being consistent, even if you're not winning. So, yeah, it's great for Matt Richards to have reached that achievement now, and he's putting all that into practice as well. By the end of today, by the way, any driver still hoping to win the championship will need to be within 66 points of the championship leader, and we'll keep an eye on that as the day progresses. But at the moment, Matt Richards only has 36 and a half, 35 and a half. These decimal places are making it quite difficult, but at the moment he's nowhere near being able to clinch it here at Silverstone anyway.
Yeah, it is going to be tough. Dan Hurlock, as you say, needs a good round, essentially, to sort of have any chance in the championship. So, as it stands, they're still on warm-up, but we'll bring up the grid, of course, as soon as we can. Just trying to get that final prep in. But I suppose, when you have got sort of 3 minutes before you get going for the race, how do you best use this time? Do you, like some of these drivers are doing, stay out on track? Or, I suppose, do you use this time as a chance to reset after qualifying?
Well, I personally always like to drive during a warm-up session just to keep things fresh and to keep this. I don't know. I just feel like after a break, you feel a little bit less practiced and a little bit unfamiliar again, and it takes just a moment to get used to the car around you. But clearly, some people it's the opposite. If they drive too much, then they do get a little bit frustrated with what they're doing. They need to, go out, walk around, or just stand outside the rig for a second, or whatever it is. So it would be driver preference, really. But it does seem like a fair amount of them want to drive during the warm-up session, and it's not like you can't get any laps in either. I know lap times are really irrelevant, and we're not even going to be keeping an eye on these times. We're just going to discount them entirely. But the fact that you do actually get to do multiple full laps here is a very good thing in terms of keeping yourself practiced. Some circuits, obviously, if you do this warm-up session at the North Side, Le Mans or something really long, then you can never get a full lap in. So you do kind of think, well, what is the point? But around here, you can actually get multiple flying laps in, and it's good, and it's good practice to keep things fresh for those who like to do that. So I'd be out there at the moment in warm-up, but it looks like it's coming to an end very shortly, and we will be underway with race 1 pretty shortly as well, the first of 3.
Yes, very much looking forward to it. Of course, I'm actually quite the opposite, because, what more can you learn in those 3 minutes? Surely all the prep is done. It's like trying to cram in for an exam 5 minutes beforehand. You can't really learn more than you've already got. I didn't do that either. I also wrote in the wrong colour, but we don't go into that because the grid's about to come up as soon as possible, hopefully to save me from the absolute shame of writing in a green pen, thinking it's a black pen. Digging myself deeper and deeper. But yeah, 22 laps of racing, of course, for our 3 laps. 66 in total around the Silverstone National Circuit. Of course, tyre choice, ballast especially, is going to be a huge talking point around a circuit that is as straight line speed orientated as Silverstone. So yeah, that success ballast is really going to quite literally carry some weight into this race.
Yeah, it is. You're going to have to be careful of that. But it's not an unfamiliar situation for a lot of these drivers to be in now with the success ballast, really, is it? I mean, they'll be very used to it at this point. So I wouldn't be too worried about it, to be honest. But it's going to create a very interesting situation for us. We're going to see where everyone filters out by the end of this one, because it's an important race coming up.
It is, but it's John Monroe able to take pole position after missing out a couple weeks ago. He didn't attend Donington. He's back on top form. Dan Calcido via 3 and 4 with Matt Churgwin in rounding off the second row. Ryan Elliott rounds off the top 5 with Ross McGregor, the Rocket Sim Sport teammate, of course, rounding off row 3. Thomas O'Leary down in 7th with Scott Mitchell-Marm in 8th. Beyond that, Dan Hurlock and Callum Cripps round off the top 10. Still no sign of championship leader. Scott Sovic and Dylan Platt 11th and 12th for the TR powered by Geeks and Energy number 40 machine. Of course, the Geeks Energy cars taking to the infinity for the final couple rounds of the season. Tobias Blue Machine and Thomas Fack, row 7, with Adam Christopher and Sam Dowman 15th and 16th place. Now, there is Matt Richards, the championship leader, of course, not having the best of qualifying, but suiting a very, very nice livery. He's going to be joined by Ben Willis on row 9, with Jack Nichols and Adam Locke rounding off the top 20. Cam Brewster, Phil Morby, Stephen Haley and Matt Allington, the top 24, with only 2 drivers on a very lonely row 13. Of course, Scott Morris and Callum Wilson. But a big surprise there, Matt Richards down in 17th place. Of course, he has to qualify on that success ballast of 75 kilos. It's going to be tough, because he's got to fight his way back through the field as well.
Yeah, it's a big ask now, and you've got to get yourself up there as well. You've got to be thinking about races 2 and 3, haven't you, really? So it's not just about this one, it's about those further on as well. He's going to gain a place immediately, because I think Adam Christopher's going to start from the pit lane for whatever reason. But yeah, even so, he's not even in the points at the moment. We'll need to gain places early on and throughout this race.
We will do indeed, yeah. Interesting that we're seeing a couple drivers start from the pit lane, but it's Monroe and Kell, the front row of the grid. Round number 9 of the VMO TCUK Championship here at the Silverstone National. We're into the penultimate round of the season, and race 1 is underway. That run, of course, into Copse Corner means that it's vital to get a good start. It seemed like the Ford Focus got a good initial launch, but not quite able to get himself to the inside of Monroe going into that first corner, but practically pushing him through. And now we head ourselves in towards the famous Maggots and Beckett's. Couple of side-by-side moments in the background. I think Matt Churgwin and Ross McGregor fighting over 5th place, but is that going to fizzle out as we head into the first major braking zone before we head our way on to the Wellington Straight? It's all about getting a good exit. Thomas O'Leary fighting away with Ross McGregor, trying to promote himself into 6th place. Could we see a 3-wide moment going into the first braking zone of the race? That remains to be seen, but so far so good for the leader.
Lots of weaving around here as they all try and take the place away from John Monroe at the moment. They can't quite do it. Dan Kell and Sid Advisor it was who was trying to make the places there, but side by side into Brooklands they go. There's Daniel Hurlock picking him out through the crowd in the white and light blue, if you like, of the Infinity, battling for 9th place at the moment, I believe, with Scott Mitchell-Marm. Side by side they go in the 2 Infinities for that 9th position. Hurlock still at least staying in front of Matt Richards, who is up to 15th in the opening lap of this race.
He is. Dan Kell also been able to promote himself into the lead ahead of John Monroe, so a good start once more from Kell, who is looking so good in terms of raw pace as it stands. Will he be at the mercy of his hardware, though? A car off in the background and a yellow being thrown. Who for? As a couple of moves in the background, Matt Richards trying to promote himself up a couple of places as well, although that yellow flag, who was off?
Sure, for the moment, but we'll find out and maybe see that a bit later on. But yeah, I believe it might be Scott Morris actually further down. But anyway, side by side in towards Brooklands again for those further down the field. This is Matt Richards trying to make his way up into 14th now in that special edition livery, of course, and he does make his way around the outside of Sam Dowman there to get into 14th. Let's have a look at what happened in turn 1 though. Here it was Scott Morris. And he gets on the grass himself there, I think, doesn't he, at Copse Corner. Overcorrects, slides and goes all the way around. He will be at the back for most likely the duration of this race.
Yeah, Matt Richards making a ascent to the inside of Copse Corner as well to promote himself ahead of Dowman for 14th. So now into the points, of course, Matt Richards bit by bit picking his way through the field. Matt Churgwin under a little bit of pressure as Thomas O'Leary is hammering him on the pressure. The Honda Civic tries to go to the outside with Scott Sovic and Mitchell Marm as well in the background, just trying to fight their way through the opening lap, sort of the carnage and chaos really, with all the cars being close. It's difficult to pick a line. Thomas O'Leary goes to the inside though and promotes himself into 6th place. You've then got Sovic and Churgwin running side by side just in the background. Mitchell Marm, I should say, running side by side with Churgwin. That's of course that fight for 7th. The Pixelate Esports 34 just able to steer clear of all of it, but of course Mitchell Marm is able to pick his way up and into 8th place. So plenty of overtaking going on, and so far it's been kept nice and clean.
That was Sovic getting really out of shape through Brooklands there, but kept it on the road at the very least. through there. Fastest lap for Ross McGregor there over the line in fifth position. Still very close at the front, as we expected to see, really, from the opening moments of this race, as Sam Dowman's gone off through Cobb's Corner by the looks of things. There's an almighty train for, 15th place on backwards. Oh dear. And I think that's Brewster maybe off the road, is it? It is, in the BMW, straight off to the right-hand side. You don't often find yourself there, in fact, Cameron Brewster, but he has done. And he'll be at the back now as well. Few drivers off the road here early on.
Yeah, Mitchell Marm looking to go to the inside of Churgwin, going into Brooklands corner as well. But yeah, but maybe he was invited there. Maybe he locked the rears. We'll have to take another look at it, of course, to properly digest it. But a huge mistake there, unfortunately, for Cam Brewster, sees him down to 25th place, ahead only of Scott Morris, who himself has had a couple issues. Lap 4 of 22, and still the two leaders separated by just a quarter of a second. You've then got Sido Vaya, not a million miles away either, hopefully to provide some rear gunner support to his Calamity Esports teammate of Dan Kell. Monroe sandwiched in between the two of them. What can he do? And his pursuit for the lead. Couple of drivers taking some liberties in terms of track limits at Cobb's Corner, which, with some of these cars being front-wheel drive, you can't exactly blame them.
Oh, it's a peculiar way that you have to drive these on occasion. Well, those who are front-wheel drive, of course, not everyone is, but yeah, it's a peculiar way you have to drive it, and saving the car as well is a peculiar phenomenon as well in front-wheel drive, as we all know, or most people watching this probably know. So yeah, it can feel very alien when you first step into one of those cars, but there is a selection. You can go rear-wheel drive as well in these cars, as the BMWs are indeed, and there are plenty of those up and down the field. Matt Richards' BMW, though, still only 14th. There's only a couple of points for that.
Yeah, not much, but still Dan Halleck only in 10th, so it's not, a huge loss or sort of gain on either part. So I'm sure Richard's main objective is just going to be able to slowly but surely pick his way through the carnage and set himself up for the rest of course, the evening. His option race is going to be taken in race 3, where he'll then be on the softer compounded tyre. So maybe as the evening develops, he's maybe going to get quicker and quicker, and then maybe sort of build up to a podium or to a win later on, but that remains to be seen. We've got to finish race 1 first. Let's get through the first stepping stone of the evening. Matt Churgwin in the middle of Thomas O'Leary and Mitchell Marm. They round off lap 6 and going on to 7. O'Leary not really showing his mettle too much as Ben Willis tries to go onto the inside of Stephen Haley going into Luffield. That could open the door for Willis, who's not quite been able to get the run. Bit of push to pass potentially, as you saw Stephen Haley trying to just immediately zoom his way back past, but not quite able to find his way to the inside. And that's another thing around a circuit so top speed dominant, Ewan, is the fact that you've got to manage that hybrid deployment so cleverly.
Yeah, you do have to really be wary of it. The advantage you do get, to be fair, is the fact that it's such a short circuit, so you're not managing it over a really long period of time, but a lot of that time is spent full throttle. That was a lot of contact there. Bloomshire getting straight into the back of Morby there, and he was sandwiched really, because Ben Willis got straight into the back of him as well in the Toyota, so it was all going on there. Now Willis is under pressure from Haley on the way in towards Brooklands. Late braking from the Honda, but not quite the room to make it around there. Quite close actually, but not quite the room to make it round the outside, and then all the others catch on from further behind. So it's all very close here in the midfield, and indeed further towards the front as well. To be fair, the top 4 separated by only 1.4 seconds at the moment. There's a second group battling for 6th as well.
There is indeed, and plenty of action up and down and everywhere in between this field. That's the biggest thing I think the TCUK can pride itself on, is just the sheer amount of competitiveness. The top 4, as we say, nose to tail in their fight for the lead, as we're just over a third of the way through. Kel's still able to sort of control the race out in front, but, well, if that will last, I suppose. How long will it last? Will John Monroe be able to mount a challenge in the near future? I suppose the advantage the two Calamity Motorsport cars have is each other. They can provide each other some support, whereas the other two are all by themselves.
Yeah, that is a problem, especially around here as well. But really in touring car racing generally, if you've not got a friend up there and someone else has, then you are in a bit of trouble sometimes. But it's not something that you can't overcome, of course. you certainly can, but we'll have to see. We're kind of in a waiting period at the front here as Ryan Elliott goes a bit wide there through Copse Corner. It kind of feels like we're in a bit of a waiting period. John Munro not really willing to risk it all right now to try and get past Dan Kell, but I'm sure he will try and risk something. He'll do something to try and take this lead away from Dan Kell before the race is over.
I'm sure he will. Matt Richards as well, been able to move his way up into 12th place, just ahead, of course, of Dylan Platt, who did look to go for a counter-attack. Matt Richards, is he going to be forced to go defensive once again? Of course, race 3 will mark his 450th race in the TCUK. Outside line for Dylan Platt, and Matt Richards is carving his way through quite nicely. A bit of power slide on the exit of Brooklands Corner, looks very, very nice. Now you've got the RSR driver of Thomas Fack trying to pick his way past the fellow Infinity of Dylan Platt. Not quite able to on this occasion, but have to say, despite everything that's against him, you know, the prime tires as opposed to the options, the heavier ballast, Matt Richards is not doing too bad of a job in race 1.
He's doing a very good job, actually. He's up to 4 points now after not having any to start with, and that's only 2 less than Hurlock's getting, who's really not making any progress, by the way, Daniel Hurlock, even though 5th or 6th place is not even that far ahead of Hurlock right now. I know the top 4 are out of question because they're up here, but Hurlock could be getting some more points here, and he just isn't for the moment. But that, of course, will preserve it and get rid of a lot of, if not all of his ballast, depending on where he finishes in this opening race. And we'll see what that brings during the second one as we go back to that group now involving Matt Richards, although he's getting away from these guys a little bit. Blumsheim's certainly not, though. He's being overtaken quite a lot in the first half of this race, and he's slipped to 18th now.
Yeah, not the best start, of course, for Blumsheim, who also wasn't here a couple of weeks ago either, so maybe a little bit of cobwebs for the Rocket Sim Sport driver to dust off, but yeah, not the start he would have wanted to have in this evening of racing into the second half of this race as well. Back to the front, Ryan Elliott trying to maybe pose a bit of a challenge, bit of a lock-up from a couple of drivers going into the corner that loops us round onto the Wellington Straight. No major changes still, though. Pretty stagnant. Is that can't or won't, do you think, Ewan?
It's a difficult. I think it's a won't at the moment, because look at this now. Lap 11, we're starting to see movement. That was a lock-up from Ryan Elliott, and Ryan there had to just avoid the bit of a slide between the two, maybe a hint of contact as well, but they stay single file. I think this is definitely a won't situation, because what is the point at this stage? They're only getting away from those further behind, but staying in line as they are, and that is ideal because they're reducing the front group to 4, whereas it could be as many as, what, with 10 if they let themselves battle too much. So this is the right thing to do, and it's very much a waiting period for later on, although they're getting a bit impatient, it has to be said, now in the second half of this race.
Well, they is Ryan Elliott. He is the one. He's the one trying to move his way onto the podium and really get himself involved. I'd still say it's too early, because again, the threat of Ross McGregor and Matt Chagwin are both two drivers that you really don't particularly want on your tail, especially as it would invite another Rocket Sim Sport driver. So then you've got 2 full sets of teammates. It's like this is for playing Monopoly in these touring car games. They've got 2 full sets, which is a very dangerous prospect to have. Anyway, Ryan Elliott, yeah, he wouldn't want to get himself, with more trouble. He's at the rear end of this train, which, to be fair, is not a bad position to be in. It means he's only looking forward for the time being, which means that's his sole and only focus, which I think is definitely helping him to maybe mount a challenge on to Sido Via. But as the laps tick down, they're short laps, they're coming thick and fast here. It gets to a point where you have to say, you've got to, it's now or never.
I don't think we're at that point yet, to be honest. 10 laps remaining at the moment. I think we're still away from that, and there is still a worry that those behind, including the likes of Ross McGregor, will catch up here. A group of 4 is never ideal, really, but it's so much better than a group of, what would it be? Probably 11 drivers would catch up or be involved in the race leading battle if they fought too hard at the front here. So 4 is infinitely better than 11 in terms of a leading group to fight over in the later laps, and so I do think this is the right call, just to stay where they are for the moment and just consolidate the positions, then go a little bit later. But Ryan Elliott will be getting a little bit worried, and he'll probably get worried first, because when you're in 4th place you can feel like you're trapped and you're sort of being gate-kept, if that's a word, away from the first place, and especially with a teammate involved in Sido Via, he's got a real problem on his hands, so he will start to move first, and we're already starting to see that even more than 10 laps out.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be left out. He's fourth wheeling in this podium fight, and he'd like to get himself involved. Stephen Haley looking nice in 15th place, of course. That's one singular point, so hanging on to a point score finish. Back to the top 10, and Dan Hurlock, he's knocking on the door of a couple more points, and I think these are crucial points to have considering the progress that Matt Richards has shown over the course of the last 14 laps.
Yeah, I think so, because at the moment he's only gaining 2 points back. So that's a worry for Hurlock. At the moment, going into this race, the margin was 35.5 points. 33.5 is not much better, really, as we see the fighting for the final 2 points paying places. Stephen Haley down the inside of Platt in towards Brooklands. It's a nice move, actually. The Honda all the way in front and cleared on the way in towards Luffield. Don't see that very often.
You don't, but a very good move indeed. Great respect shown between the two of them as well. So that, of course, is the main thing. Phil Morby as well, trying to pick his way into the top 15, and I think he's done exactly that. He's able to get that forward focus up and ahead and into a singular point-paying position. 8 laps, well, 7.5 really left to go in this race on lap 15 of 22, and we're still waiting for the fuse to blow out at the top of the timing tower, to wait for a spark to happen that ignites that lead fight. Is a little bit wide there from Stephen Haley, nearly potentially cost him a couple of places, but he's able to keep the momentum up. Phil Morby, however, could be in a little bit of trouble, as in the background as well you can see a number of drivers having to go to the inside line. Dylan Platt, he's able to stay on the outside, but it's not quite able to make any progress forward. Then you had Adam Locke trying to launch a bit of an attack on Willis just ahead and his fellow Cooper, but no major changes between these guys. And I suppose that is a difficulty when you've got trains like this, because everyone is getting a slipstream off each other.
It is a bit of a problem, but then again, these guys are starting to sort themselves out almost naturally here. Dan Kell and John Monroe seem to be that bit faster than those behind, and maybe the pressure that Ryan Elliott is putting on Tavares at the moment is just helping the front two get away, but that certainly won't help. John Monroe just made a mistake in towards Beckett's there, as we'll call it for this round, really. I know Beckett's sort of continues on through there, but it's the hairpin we have here for the national layout, of course. So yeah, 6 laps to go at the end of this one. Dan Kell is still holding on to the lead, but I feel like he's going to have bigger challenge a little bit later on, as he looks to aim for his 4th win of the season.
He'd like to, but it is going to be difficult for him to wrap that one up. So we'll see. Time will tell, and time will, of course, answer all the questions and see if he's able to wrap up that win. As it stands, though, it's Kell from Monroe via Elliott and Churg in the top 5. Of course, the top 4, the only ones really in with a shout. That's Mitchell Marm going quite wide through Copse Corner. That has lost him 8th place to Scott Sovic. Has it lost him another place down to Dan Hurlock as well? I think he's just been able to get away with it. But a small mistake can definitely have big consequences, especially if you're scared of reduction time due to track limits. The top 2, however, in this fight, Dan Kell and John Monroe, little bit by little bit, picking themselves away from that fight. I mean, they've nearly, well, they have now breached over a second back to Via.
Yeah, and this kind of nullifies the advantage that the teammates had earlier on. As we're 3 wide in towards Brooklands, this is very aggressive, and it's not even for any points at the moment. Down the inside there, I think, was Platt right to the very inside, or maybe he was being hounded there, but anyway, it's all for 16th place, and it was all busy there as we've got off the road Scott Mitchell Barm. Yeah, I thought he was straight on at Brooklands, I believe, almost as if he's had some sort of technical failure, because he's just gone straight on, and for no apparent reason, really.
Yeah, unless he's just rage quit out the race, which I doubt. Not sure.
Can't remove himself either. He's only just removed himself, which is why I bring up a technical issue, because or is he still not removed? I think he's still just sat there.
Let's take a look as to exactly what happened. No, we won't. We'll go back to the live action now. We will take a look back. Yeah,
look,
he just
got
bails out.
No control. Yeah,
absolutely none. He's not.
It's a wheel failure there for me, because he's got brakes.
Yeah,
but he doesn't have steering, quite clearly. He didn't get in the grass there and the gravel for fun. So yeah, his wheel is clearly not working. Whether it's comically fallen off into his lap, I don't know. But that's just my imagination. I think it's more likely to have just stopped working internally, and unfortunately, that means he's out of the race.
It does. Yeah, that is usually quite a big failure when it happens, if your steering wheel shuts off or falls off, whichever one so misfortunes you. Then yeah, you're probably not going to be finishing very well unless you're very handy and able to very quickly get it back on. The joys are quick release sometimes, potentially, but yeah, if it is switched off, then it takes a little bit longer to switch back on again. Thankfully, though, no one was involved due to that technical difficulty, and we still have those that were around him still accounted for and still in this race. Dan Kell, John Munro into the final few laps of race number 1, though. Who is going to be the one to seize victory? And, well, it could be any of them, realistically. Yeah. Any small mistake and, you know, all 4 of them could be in the mix.
Yeah, even Sidovaya has just made a bit of progress over the last couple of laps, really. He's got rid of the pressure from Ryan Elliott, or maybe just stopped focusing on it so much, and he's starting to get back into the fray again. And John Munro might start to get a bit itchy now, knowing that he could be being sandwiched basically by the 2 Fords on the inside of him. Needs to be careful of that, so will want to make his move soon. And of course, he's running out of laps in this race anyway, so if he's going to do it at all, then it's going to have to be soon, if not right now, because there's 2.5 laps to go as we speak.
Yeah, not long left to go in this race whatsoever, and that's basically 2.5 minutes of time. Of course, they're into the 57.9s, probably on average. 57.5 I'm seeing is the best lap time that I can see on the live timing. So yeah, not long basically left to go in this race. So you've got to start thinking about your moves, and if there is an opportunity that arises, you've got to go for it. Surely we've been talking about that go time. If it's any time, it's now.
It is now, and you've got to do it because it's the penultimate lap as we go on to lap number 21 here. Munro has got to do, and this is where we find out whether it was a won't or can't situation in terms of overtaking. I still think it was a won't overtake for this moment, but now that they're both pushing again, it does seem that he's slightly struggling, John Munro. He's pushed a bit hard in towards Beckett's on a couple of occasions in the last 5 laps. He's just given himself a bit of problems, although I think Dan Kell maybe just had a screen freeze, and John Munro might well be right with him now, and he certainly is.
He pulls out to the right-hand side, his best opportunity of the race so far, and it comes into the penultimate time through Brooklands. Dan Kell is able to hold it on the inside, not quite got the run as the pole sitter. Munro has to sit idle and once again play second fiddle. We've got 1 more lap here for race number 1 of the VMO TCUK, round number 9 here at Silverstone, and it's Dan Kell fighting tooth and nail for this win with John Munro. We cross our way over the line, it's 1 to go. Oh. He tried, but Dan Kell had it covered, and realistically, as long as he covers it into Brooklands, he should be fine.
Well, it's easier said than done, of course. If Munro gets a good run out of Beckett's, then he'll be really up for this, although Vaya is right there as well, so it could be difficult for Munro. He sails in towards Beckett's. He's held a nice line, though. I think Dan Kell has done enough, fending off through Brooklands and Luffield on the last lap. I think he's done enough for his 4th race win of the year.
I think so as well, unless Munro is an absolute hero on the brakes into Brooklands. I don't quite think he is. So Dan Kell has got 2 corners left to negotiate and the run to the line in order to seal, as we say, his 4th win, his 8th podium of what has so far been a fantastic season of racing. Race number 1 is going to go the way of the Clementi Motorsport 89 machine. He's held on brilliantly ahead of pole sitter Munro. He flashes the headlights, he crosses the line first, and it's Dan Kell that wins the race. John Munro and Sidovaya in 2nd and 3rd. Ryan Elliott and Matt Churgwin, the top 5. Beautiful racing all throughout here in Silverstone, and well, you only get 2 more races to go.
Daniel Hurlock, by the way, just missed out on passing Callum Cripps at the very end there, so that was a point missed out from Hurlock. He only gains 2. Now that advantage is 33.5 points for Matt Richards, who finishes in 11th. Thomas O'Leary gains another 3 points on Hurlock, which could be important, by the way, as well, when we get to the end of the championship. They're now only 18 points apart, with still 5 races to go of this championship.
We'll bring you up the final results, of course, and for those unfamiliar, we will go into race number 2 with this as the grid. Dan Kell will start from pole position, though will now be carrying 75 kilos in success ballast. It's John Munro from pole that only is able to take 2nd in the end, ahead of Sidovaya in 3rd. Ryan Elliott, Matt Churgwin the top 5, with Thomas O'Leary fighting really nicely into 6th. Scott Sovic and Callum Cripps in behind 7th and 8th, with Dan Hurlock able to only get 9th, with Thomas Vack rounding off the top 10 for RSR. Of course, beyond that, we've got the likes of Matt Richards, who was close, not quite close enough to a top 10 finish, but still some good points in limiting the damage to championship rival of Dan Herlock there in 11th. Stephen Haley, Phil Morby, Adam Locke and Dylan Platt round off the top 15, with Adam Christopher, Ben Willis and Callum Wilson in behind that. Then comes Ross McGregor, of course some late issues for him and a late penalty for him, with Jack Nichols rounding off the top 20. Behind that, Matt Allington, Tobias Blumstein, Cam Brewster, Sam Dalman and Scott Morris, those that were able to make it to the end of the race. And then, of course, unsurprisingly, Scott Mitchell-Mann, the only DNF from race number 1. Unfortunate wheel issues see him retire, but he'll be back, hopefully, raring to go for race number 2, which will be arriving in just a few moments' time. Myself, Zach Sweeney, Ewan O'Leary will be standing aside for just a moment. We'll be back. Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen, as we're going to get straight into business for race number 2. It's Dan Kell, after winning race 1, that takes pole position, and John Munro, Sid Ovia and Ryan Elliott, the top 2 rows after their fantastic battle over the first 22 laps of racing. Matt Churgren rounds off the top 5, and he's joined by Thomas O'Leary on row 3. Then comes Scott Sovic and Callum Cripps in behind in 7th and 8th to round off row 4. Rounding off the top 10 though is Dan Helg and Thomas Fack for RSR, with Matt Richards only 2 places behind and directly behind his championship rival. Stephen Haley joins him, of course, alongside on that run in towards Copse Corner. Behind that, Phil Morby, Adam Locke, Dylan Platt and Adam Christopher, the top 8 rows of the grid. And Adam Christopher is going to be looking to make some moves up in order to score some points this evening. Ben Willis, Callum Wilson, row 9, with Ross McGregor and Jack Nichols rounding off at the top 20. Only a few more cars to go. We've got 3 rows, 6 cars beyond this one. We've got Matt Allington, Tobias Blumsheen, Cam Brewster and Sam Dowman in 23rd and 24th place respectively. And then of course the 2 unfortunate guys who round off the final row of the field, Scott Morris and Scott Mitchell-Marm, who didn't quite get off to the best of starts this evening, but Ewan were moments away from getting ourselves underway for round number 2, and we're getting confirmation that Mitchell-Marm's failure over the course of race 1 was an unfortunate wheel failure, but well, now he's just got a lot more fun over the course of race 2 and 3.
Well, yeah, if he's not taking it too seriously and he just wants to have a bit of fun going through the field, then he's in luck. But it might well be a frustrating evening for him from here on in. Another 22 laps coming up, but a very different look to this one, I've got to say. The championship contenders, the main 3 anyway, all finishing outside the top 5 in that race, in the opening race. So they will be feeling fairly light for race number 2.
They will be indeed. They've got a lot more points to earn and 22 more laps of racing action. It's Callum Munro that once again share the front row. This time it's roles reversed for race number 2 of the VMO TCUK here in Silverstone. We are underway once more for that run in towards Copse Corner. It's a good start from the lead for Dan Kell, who's able to maintain that pole position but moves up and down as Ryan Elliott sees his way past Sid Ovia for 3rd place. Got Sovic trying to pick his way and maintain 5th, but Thomas O'Leary, who's always very punchy off the start, finds himself side by side and on the inside going into the first braking zone here for sort of Beck. It's a big lock-up from the BMW there of Sovic, but it's a good enough start to see him maintain a top 5.
I think mostly it was clean, but there was a bit of sliding and crashing in the background. I think everybody stayed pointing the right way, actually, which is a bit of a miracle further on back, because in the second half of the field, it was carnage, and you can see this view from Scott Morris. It's all over the road in front of him, down in towards Brooklands for the first time. He'll brake late and try and make up some places. Slides from those of him up front, the likes of Ross McGregor, I believe. But yeah, chaotic start in the second half of the field, whereas it was actually relatively calm in the top half.
Yeah, Scott Morris getting a whole bucket load of oversteer on the exit of Luffield. But yeah, so far so good. We tick our way onto lap number 2. It's Kell from Monroe, Elliott, Vite and Sovic, the top 5, with fights up and down as everyone is not really separated by much more than half a second apiece throughout the entirety of the 26 car field that we've got. We've got a yellow flag in sector 1. Who is that off? Callum Wilson for Richards & Co. off the road and suffering some sort of an issue. Maybe just your bog standard spin through Copse.
Possibly. We saw a few of those in the opening race of the day, and it wouldn't be a surprise to see a few more. Now there are looks from the likes of Thomas O'Leary, who is down the inside of Sovic there, and he's got Daniel Hurlock right behind. This is important for the championship, of course. They're 2 of them very, very close to one another as Matt Richards and Churgwin also fight. It's Richards who's been pushed to the outside through there and loses a place. Back to 9th for Matt Richards. That's Morby just behind as well. In that 10th place, so all very close. They're just in the bottom half of the top 10.
In a bit, over the curb, car got unsettled and around he went. He tried to correct it, the car snapped back. Thankfully no one else was involved. That could have been a very high speed incident. But yeah, for Matt Richards, of course, coming into race 2, yes, he's not on the softer compounded tyre yet, but fielding absolutely nothing in terms of success ballast, so should in theory be flying as Callum Cripps flies his way to the inside. Is off the road in the background, I think. Who's that? Willis having an off, and well, maybe just either braking too late or braking off the track, forced him wide. I think he's been able to recover and get back on, as we've got Callum Cripps just in behind that. You've got, of course, Christopher and Haley fighting over 12th place, but yeah, a couple of mistakes creeping into the mix.
Yeah, there are, and that's to be expected as well, not because they're long races, but they're just very intense races in the CCUK Championship. Dan Kell still leading by more than a second now, and you wonder how long he can keep that up, because there are some very lightweight drivers further behind in terms of their ballast, by the way, who are trying to make up the places from further back and could very well be on the podium by the end of this race. And then of course there's the reverse grid for race 3 as well, which is going to prove to be problematic for some, quite possibly. But there they are, there's the battle. It's all very close here and very entertaining stuff from about second on backwards, really.
Yeah, it's just so chaotic, so much fun, and I'm sure these drivers are either loving it or hating it. Outside line for Matt Richards going into Brooklands. That is a twitch just ahead as well of the RSR machine. Bit of contact we saw as Dan Hurlock is trying to catapult himself around the outside of Scott Sovic and find his way into 5th place, but there's Thomas O'Leary picking his way on the inside of the penultimate corner. Not quite enough though on that run through Woodcut and towards Cobb's corner. There we go, get one of them right. We don't even turn into Stowe. I don't know what I'm on about. Anyway, Dan Hurlock, he's on his route to 5th place. It's going to be difficult to the outside of Cobb's. The Gas and Chain Ballast Esports driver of Sovic has got it covered for now, but this midfield fight just in behind the podium should be very, very hectic for a couple more laps to come, hopefully.
Just looking down the inside into Beckett's is Hurlock, and it's not going to happen. O'Leary on the outside of him at the moment, and there goes Richards on the inside. So 1, 2, 3 in the championship, 6, 7 and 8 in the race, but Richards can't quite get through on Thomas O'Leary there. It's side by side as Hurlock tries to make his way down the inside of Sovic. More intimidating him than anything as Matt Richards heads down the inside, very nearly down the inside of Thomas O'Leary. Can't quite do it on that occasion as he takes part in his 449th race in this series.
He's getting there. What a weird 449, it's not even a number, 450 in a race time, and he's probably, I think, as we said, building up to maybe score well on that absolutely huge milestone. What's that, 3 races a night? That's 150 events, which is a lot, right? That's a fair few for Matt Richards, and he's going to be able to take a well-deserved break. Into Maggins Beckett's Thomas O'Leary trying to find his way through, but no inside line advancing as it stands. I think a lot of people see that as an overtaking opportunity. I think it's more a setup than anything. Yeah,
possibly. I mean, it's difficult for us to tell. It's the kind of thing we have to find out afterwards, really. But for the moment, there's plenty going on. There goes Richards again. His teammate should say, oh, that's contact. And that might well be a penalty later on in the stewards' room as well, as Matthew Churgwin is stuck in the middle of the road. This is horrendous for him. He will, no. This is getting bad now. 4 drivers are backwards through Brooklands. And, Churgwin still hasn't moved since his spin about 30 seconds ago now. Finally, he gets back on the road.
Finally. But a lot of time lost, which is going to be a huge loss over the course of the rest of this race. A couple of incidents creeping in and a couple of people making some fairly big mistakes that very could cost them a few points. Outside line though, going into Maggots and Beckers, I think that is in fact Scott Sovic on Dan Hurlock. Beautiful move, great respect given. Couple of bits of dust being kicked up as well as they fly their way through into Beggett's. Dan Kell under a little bit of pressure, as you can see Ryan Elliott forcing him to go defensive into Brooklands. The Ford Focus, of course, maintaining his lead for now. Matt Richards getting involved in trying to send the move to the outside of Thomas O'Leary and get himself into 6th place. It becomes the inside going into Luffield, but the Honda Civic is going to try and keep his nose in all the way around the outside. Bit of a twitch on the exit for the championship leader. We're going to take another look back though. What has happened to Matt Churgwin?
This has got to be a penalty for me. He's broken. Oh no, sorry. I've got that all wrong. I thought that he was hit from behind actually, but it doesn't appear so, does it at all? From that angle, I've got that all wrong. And then in avoidance, a spin there, and Scott Mitchell-Barnes just having the most unlucky of days I think I've ever seen actually. He gets involved in that through no fault of his own, has to spin around, and he is at the back of the field again. So yeah, that was all a bit of a comedy of errors from everyone really. But yeah, got that all wrong really. It's just a solo mistake really, getting into the back of the car in front.
Yeah, just again, no malice in it whatsoever. Just he broke too late. We've all been there, we've all done it. Matt Richards sitting idle to this fight between John Munro and Dan Hurlock. Bit of a slide from the RSR machine as he tries to put his foot to the floor going into Luffield. It's the long way around though for Munro, who's trying to hang on to 4th place. It's not quite enough, and Matt Richards could well see himself promoting himself just behind his championship rival, the Rocket Simsport driver, left to dry on the outside. Thomas O'Leary might well fancy his chances as well into Cox corner. Lap 9 of 22, and Munro has had an absolute stinker of a final sector.
Let's have a look at this again so we can get a full view as to... So there was contact. So the onboard was a bit misleading in the end, and it turns out I was correct in the first place, at least I think, because he certainly was hit around Churgwin, and I'd imagine there will be a penalty going the way, was it Cripps maybe who got into the back of him? Not sure. It was one of the BMWs. I think it would have been Cripps, but yeah, that for me is a slam dunk penalty really on the inside of Brooklands, but it doesn't really matter what we think. We'll find out afterwards.
Yeah, that's not what we're here to do. That's what Aidan Millward gets to deal with after he's finished his kebab and finally has to get up to go do some work and look at the reviews. But to be fair, it's been all right. Like, cleanliness-wise, I think he's not going to have too bad of an evening. Side-by-side going into Copse corner as well. Dan Kell forced to defend versus Ryan Elliott, who is trying to set up an up and under. He might well have a good chance going into Maggins Beckett's. Kell sees it coming and covers it off. Is there enough space? And now Elliott is looking to go to the outside, ducking and diving, trying to find some space. Matt Richards goes for third. Beautifully done. Bit of contact as well, as Dan Hurlock does not want to let him get any more advantage than possible, because of course Matt Richards is not going to be taking part in Brands Hatch. So Hurlock needs to minimise the gap to make his life as easy as possible going into the final round. Into Brooklands, and it's Richards that's finally been able to move his way up into third. That no success battle is really coming in handy, especially for some lovely power slides.
Yeah,
not bad.
It's noticeable, isn't it? The way the car's behaving differently is noticeable. Even for us, we're not driving the car and we can see it. So, and almost feel it as you're watching. So, yeah, he's enjoying himself at the moment. By the way, if we were to go into the final round now, it'd be 34 points that Turlock would need to take the title away from Richards, since he won't be there at the last round, as Ryan Elliott continues to hound Dan Kell. Now, finally, might be the move that gets him into the lead.
Could well be. It's not the most advantageous position to be in. It's the inside for Ryan Elliott, who finally, after laps upon laps of trying, starts the second half of this race in the lead. Matt Richards all over the rear end of Dan Kell, who's trying so hard despite 75 kilos of extra weight to his car. He's going to launch a counter-attack though. Could we be 3 wide going into Brooklands? It's the outside line for the Ford Focus. Dan Kell launches the counter-attack for the lead. He's a little bit shaky though, and is forced to back out in the end of it. Matt Richards now looking to sail his way to the outside of Luffield. Not quite enough space there. As you can see, Dan Hurlock searching for that inside line. We've got 4 cars nose to tail. Ryan Elliott trying to build the gap as best he can, but Richard sees the opportunity. He sees his second.
And Hurlock will continue to follow through. Oh, Kell's going to chase him to the wall, pit wall, very nearly. The two rub shoulders, and Hurlock heads his way down the inside of Dan Kell. Oh, he gets it done and very nearly loses it entirely. Kell gets into the back of the Infinity, and that was nearly disaster for the man second placed in the championship. Now Thomas O'Leary, who's third, is going to capitalise on it all and jump up to a podium place.
Beautifully done. And fielding the O'Leary name well, one of them has got to be successful, and at the moment it's Thomas O'Leary, who's moved his way up into third. Callum Cripps all over the rear end of Dan Hurlock going into Brooklands. He's going to send the move inside line late on the brakes. The RSR machine sees it coming though, and beautifully well defended from Hurlock, who's all over the rear end of O'Leary, who again is just one of those drivers that he's just always there. I don't know how he does it, but he's always there week in, week out. He's taken so many wins so far this season, and well, now he's looking to add to his podium roster, but you never know. The unpredictability of races like this is, you know, we could see Ryan Elliott bin it into the next corner.
Oh yeah, I mean, we just don't know it, because they are so unpredictable. It's been such a fantastic ride so far, and we've still got nearly half of this race remaining, by the way. Not exactly like we're nearly over here. Side by side further back as well. It's all very close. Look at the top 16 separated by about 6 seconds. It's just fantastic racing for the moment, but surely Ryan Elliott's days are numbered. He's led a couple of laps now. We'll get the point for that, but Matt Richards wants all the points from this race, as many as he can possibly get, because he's hounding Ryan Elliott, and at the line there'll be still 9 laps for him to find his way through.
Yeah, plenty of time when you think about it, but also not really. Obviously 9 laps seems like a lot, so he can sort of take his time, but then it'll get to a point where it's like, oh, it's already 8 laps to go, 7, 6, and they'll tick down a lot quicker than you think. So he's got to make the most of each and every single opportunity that comes his way. Ryan Elliott is going to have a long time to defend, but Richards, surely he's got to take this win, right? I mean, with no success bias and being the championship leader, what else would you expect really from Richards? He's the quickest driver of the bunch so far. I think he's just waiting for an opportunity, and thankfully I suppose he is in a position where he can kind of take his time, but also not really, because if he does, O'Leary would be knocking on his door, sending him backwards and ruining his progress. He is pushing like crazy, and I'm sure he wants that win on his 449th race. Ryan Elliott is definitely struggling, and Richards, you can tell, is in control.
He is very much in control of this situation, just almost picking and choosing his moments. And if the pressure from O'Leary was a little bit heightened at this stage, I think he would feel a little bit more urgency maybe, but he's not feeling that at the moment because there is no pressure really. Dankel and Cedar Vaya now are still separated, but still sandwiching someone. At this time, Adam Christopher, but a lot further back now are the two Fords, and unfortunately just going to try and hang on to a good position in the reverse grid really. The further they slip here, the less chance they'll have of benefiting and being right back up towards the front.
Yeah. Of course, the range is anywhere from 6 to 12. So if you're in 13th, get that 12th place just in case. If you're in 7th, I suppose, go for that 6th just in case, because it could be the difference in between you getting pole and you starting from 7th place. Small differences could have big consequences. Cam Brewster on the back of Thomas Frack going into Brooklands. He's not had the best of race over the course of race 1. As Ryan Elliott had an issue, I think he has. He's tumbled to 5th, 6th. 7th, he's off the road surely. There's yellow flag being kicked out. Where is he going to rejoin? I think he's not even stabilised in 8th, he's down to 9th. Huge news, and O'Leary leads.
Well, another point for that for Thomas O'Leary. He'll now move to 50.5 points behind Matt Richards, but surely Richards will be able to get through soon. This is the move from the current championship leader, Matt Richards. No. He's on the grass, he's on the inside, and to be honest, that's a difficult one to call, that really. Thomas O'Leary, by the way, does a great job of capitalising on all of that and taking the initiative. It's going to be an awkward one to figure out afterwards, because there was definitely a case of maybe 6 of one and half a dozen of the other there, not really sure.
Yeah, I'm split. I'm not sure. There was space initially, but it tightened up on the apex as it naturally does going into Brooklands. John Monroe struggling off the back of the top 10. There's a sideways car. I think that might have been Stephen Haley having a little bit of a moment, but yeah, everyone kept it pointing the right way for the most part. Cam Brewster as well on the outside of Morby, but Thomas Fack tries to keep his foot in on the inside going through Luffield. But yes, I think there's going to be a tough decision to be made, taking a look at countless replay angles, and of course that's obviously a good thing about being a steward. Well, there's no good thing about being a steward, but one of the less bad things is the fact you can look at it as many times as you need in as many angles as you need in order to get the best picture. For me, I'd say racing incident. I think it's just one of those things that sometimes happen.
Yeah, I think a racing incident really. I don't think Ryan Elliott quite gave all the room that maybe needed to Matt Richards there, and in the end he ends up going around and now could find himself in a lot of trouble for race 2, as there goes Morby, I think, down the inside of John Monroe, who's trying to chase him to the white line on the right hand side of our picture, although Morby heads down the inside and gets back into the top 10 again in the Ford.
Yeah, nicely done. And to be fair, Ford's showing to be a fairly decent outfit over the course of this evening of racing. Lap 17 of 22. We've not got long left to go in this race whatsoever. Just 5 measly laps remaining. O'Leary leading from Matt Richards, Callum Cripps, Herlock and Christopher, the top 5. Good people making some good progress up through the order, and unfortunately some others failing to make progress and unfortunately falling back into the clutches of the very scary midfield in behind. Adam Christopher on the back of Dan Herlock, trying to spoil his day just that little bit more on a day where his 2 championship rivals are 1 and 2. Herlock needs more.
He's slipping away a little bit, and it's going to be the second race tonight where O'Leary gains points on him, but I don't think Herlock can do a lot more from here. The benefit he's going to have is that he will start ahead of them both in the next round, but that's small consolation really, especially if Adam Christopher finds his way through, which will be a very impressive feat for him, by the way. he did start from the pit lane, didn't he, for race 1? So that's more than 20 places gained over the course of the last 40 laps, which he's now completed over the last 2 races. And Christopher, of course, will have got rid of all his ballast now, and for the second race, and is really going for it. Might even give Herlock a bit of trouble here in the last 4 laps.
I'd say so. And he's driven a brilliant, yeah, as you say, plenty of places. In fairness, not that long of a time, especially in sort of the carnage and chaos that has happened. He's negotiated it really nicely. Adam Christopher showcasing his talent. You can see very close to the top 2. Matt Richards finding himself ahead of Thomas O'Leary, who's immediately on the counter-attack, late breaking into Brooklands. And O'Leary, has he been able to get himself ahead? Adam Christopher going for 4th as well. We're on to lap 19 of 22, nearly 3 to go for race number 2. I think Richards might have sealed the deal, and O'Leary, while it was a very good initial counter-attack attempt, it might be his final counter-attack attempt.
Maybe. I mean, still 3 laps to go here. The BMW does look very strong though, and of course with a teammate there as well, Cripps could take some more points away from O'Leary here, and Richards now maybe just making sure that he can win this title without going to the last 3 rounds. Here goes Cripps down the inside into second place, and O'Leary doesn't really fight that one in the end. Maybe going to take the better starting position for the final race of the evening in that Honda. It's only slight, of course. He'll only start 1 position ahead of Cripps and 2 ahead of Richards if things stay as they are, but even so, it's not a lot he can do about that at the moment. Maybe Richards now can focus on that fastest lap, which he might be able to get in the last 2 laps.
Yeah, it's definitely doable. Again, if he uses a little bit of higher appointment, he won't have the benefit of slipstream, but of course now he's got some clear air to use. So beautiful racing from Matt Richards. Callum Cripps as well, fighting his way back through on his option tyre race. He's worked his way into second, so beautifully well done from the 2 Richards & Co cars. Again, showcasing why they are so dominant in the Constructors or Teams Championship. Lap 21 of 22. We've got a lap and a half left to go, and well, Matt Richards is then going to have to obviously combat the reverse grid, and then once again the success balance into race 3, but this time by it will be on the softer option tyres. Cam Brewster gets it all wrong going into the hairpin at Beckett's, but he's managed to hold it really nicely in the top 10, still definitely within a shout.
Yeah, it is, and of course the higher he gets up inside that top 10, the better chance he has at keeping the or benefiting from a reverse. Ross McGregor right on the back of him there as we head towards the final lap now. Matt Richards leading the way, might well extend this championship lead, putting it out of reach maybe of some. It's a good advantage that he has now as he approaches his 450th race in this series, of course, and maybe a second title as well after the final round of the season.
Could well be. All depends on how many points he's able to get into the bag here this evening. He's driven so well, and I'm quite interested to see how that 450th race is going to go for him. But of course, all eyes will be on Thomas O'Leary and Dan Herlock going into the final round in a couple of weeks' time if they are able to get enough points. I mean, to be fair, what is it? 63 points on offer. Well, even a couple more for obviously leading a lap, fastest lap, and pole position, those sort of things. So in reality, a single driver can get themselves 60 points for 3 wins. They can then get 3 points for fast lap, 1 point for pole position. So we're looking at sort of and then leading a lap in each race. So what, 67 total points over the course of the evening. So all eyes on them. But across the line, Matt Richards is going to take victory in his 449th race, ahead, of course, of his teammate Callum Cripps in second. Thomas O'Leary rounds off the podium with Dan Herlock and Adam Christopher, the top 5. Beautiful race from the 2 Richards & Co cards, and well, they should be very proud of themselves in that one. Some good points in the bag, and Matt Richards taking a good step towards, as we say, that second title.
He is another 5 points gained on O'Leary and another 8 on Herlock there. So very good race from him indeed as the final drivers come over the line. Now these guys not scoring any points, including Matthew Churgren, who has a right, I think, to feel pretty aggrieved by what happened to him down at Brooklands in the first half of that race. But yeah, that does extend advantages now for Richards to 41.5 points from what I can work out, and that's sort of the tally that Herlock is going to have to accumulate in the final round. That's the sort of tall order that he's got standing in front of him. As things stand, with still 1 remaining this evening.
Well, let's run you through the results before we take to the spinny wheel for the reverse grid of race 3. Richards & Co 1 and 2 with Richards and Cripps. We've got Thomas O'Leary rounding off the podium, once again adding to his tally in the Honda Civic. Dan Hurlock, Adam Christopher moving his way up into the top 5, with Ryan Elliott unfortunately only 6th. Then comes Dan Carl from pole position ahead of Cito via his teammate Cam Brewster, and Ross McGregor rounding off the top 10. Beyond that, of course, we then got Stephen Haley, Phil Morby, John Monroe having an absolute stinker from the front row, only 13th. Adam Locke, Thomas Fack, the final of those in the points. Got Sovic, Tobias Blumstein, Dylan Platt, Callum Wilson and Scott Morris, the top 20. He was able to move his way up a couple of places. Only 3 more drivers to finish the race, with Dalman, Allington and Churgwin. Unfortunately, we lost Nichols, Mitchell Mum and Ben Willis from race number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, that of course the results of race 2. Let's now bring up the spinny wheel. Anywhere from a top 6 to a top 12 reverse. What is it going to be going into the final race of the evening? 12. The maximum we're allowed. This should be a very, very spicy race. We're looking forward to it. Myself, Zach Sweeney, Ewan O'Leary, we're going to step aside for one final time this evening, and we'll see you for race 3. Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready to go one more time for the VMO TCUK round number 9 here at Silverstone National. We've already had 2 brilliant races, seeing Dan Kell and Matt Richards take victory in race 1 and race 2. Top 12 reverse grid, of course, in store. The maximum allowed for race 3 should be an absolute blast. Still myself, Zach Sweeney, Ewan O'Leary alongside me in the commentary booth. And Ewan, we're in for a good one.
We're back again, and looking forward to race 3, the biggest reverse grid that you can have. Top 12 all turned around in this final race of the evening, which is fantastic for us. Should be great racing, and another 22 laps of action coming up, so very much looking forward to it, and seeing if we could maybe get a surprise winner for the final race of the evening.
That would be nice. However, Matt Richards, of course, is going to be liking to round off his 450th race anniversary on a win. Of course, he's already done it on race 2. So maybe he's used up his win of the evening. Who knows? Maybe there is a chance he's going to get 2 in a row. We will find out, of course, in the final 22 laps of racing action that we've got in store for ourselves here in Silverstone before it's 2 weeks. And then we go again on the 11th of October for the final round of what has been a brilliant championship. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But the racing we've had here in Silverstone, we'll focus on Silverstone for now. We'll worry about the championship in a couple of weeks' time. Well, we probably won't, because we've been worrying about it, so far, because we've got to do some maths and make sure that Thomas O'Leary and Dan Herlock are within mathematical contention for when Richards retires and might still win the championship despite being retired. There's a lot of complications, but at the moment, let's look at Silverstone in retrospect and in isolation. A lot of slipstream. The ballast takes big precedence, and well, we've got a couple of drivers taking their softer compound race for the final race of the evening. So in theory, we should have some fireworks.
Should do, and that's the idea. We're certainly hoping so. And it's, of course, getting to the excuse me, the important point of the championship as well. You did the maths in that last race, that 67 points can be accumulated in one round, and at the moment we still have 3 drivers within 67 points of each other. That is, of course, Matt Richards. To my calculations, Daniel Herlock is 41.5 points behind, and Thomas O'Leary is 56.5 points behind. Now, I have a feeling, because of decimal places, because of all these bonus points that you can get, I have a feeling that might not be right. Quite a point here or there, but it does mean that Herlock and Richards are guaranteed to go into the final round still with a chance of winning the title. But realistically, Herlock needs to bring that margin down, doesn't he? Because, I mean, can you see him scoring 42 points in one round? It's not happened very many times. I know it's possible, very possible, but I wouldn't like that figure going into the final round, really.
It does put a lot of pressure on him. I mean, he'd done it at Donington, he'd done it at Thruxton, he's done it at Oulton Park, he did it not quite at Croft, not quite at Knockhill, definitely not at Donington, so he's done it on a couple of occasions, so could be worse.
You're saying Croft there, he's not even done it at Croft either. That was only 38 points.
I didn't say Croft. Wait, no. Oh no, that's Thomas O'Leary, of course. No, that was yeah, no. Of course, yeah, fair enough.
Yes, yeah. It's tall order. What I was going to say actually about Donington was the fact that for the first race, obviously nobody had ballast, so you could sort of do what you want if you like at that point. So and you can kind of race to full pace. Now that's become less of a thing recently. I mean, he only scored 19 points at the last round. The last time he got to that figure was Brands Hatch, I think, just about. But that was 44 points on that occasion. So it just needs to be careful. But it's going to be a great finale, I think. Even with Matt Richards not there, by the sounds of it, it's still going to be a good finale. And if anything, it makes it easier for us, to be honest, because we've only got one person gaining points, and we'll know exactly what the situation is. But we'll see as he embarks on his 450th race in this series.
Yeah. One final hurrah for the time being for Matt Richards, fielding, of course, a very, very nice livery. Do like the look of it, and I think he's thanking everyone, of course, on the side of his car. If you can read, that's what it says. It says thank you, and it looks very nice. I like the colour scheme, of course, on the Richards & Co machine. Of course, the BMW, quite a nice canvas for a livery, in all fairness, and it does look quite nice, and commemorates a very good milestone, of course. Championships, wins, podiums all throughout those 450 races, and well, what a circuit to round it off at as well. And it could be the one that he might just be able to put the nail in the coffin for the championship. I'm sure, I don't know if he's too fussed about the championship in all fairness. He might not really care, but if he does, then this is the round to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. He can't seal it mathematically, of course, but maybe morally he will be able to. This is, yeah, as you say, will be his last race in TCUK this season, and he says sim racing in general as well. So he's saying, yeah, he's taking at least a break from sim racing. He didn't rule out coming back again in sim racing, but for now, he certainly is taking a bit of a break. It said in his post earlier on that he's been racing for the last 17 years, which is longer than I thought he'd been racing for. That means he started in 2006 when Zach Sweeney was not born.
Yeah,
I don't think.
No, I was. 2006
No, you
I was
were.
born.
Well, to be fair, we don't know when in 2006 he was born, but anyway, yes. Yes, it's a long time, and sorry for making him feel old, maybe, by saying that. But yeah, it's a long time, lots of experience, and we may well see him back in the future. But for now, this will be his last race, and yeah, I think as you said to me in one of the breaks, like, it would be a great way for him to go out, sort of, to win the championship without even going to the last few rounds, last few races. That would be a great way to go out for him, winning a title while not even being there.
Yeah, can't complain with that. Of course, it does make it quite interesting because we've been talking about how Matt Richards has attended every round, whereas Dan Hurlock hadn't attended Snetterton. Now it balances things out, so there should be no excuses for Dan Hurlock going into that final round of the season. However, we're into the final race of this evening. We're about to get ourselves underway for the formation lap. As we say, top 12 was the reverse grid. Waiting for the rest of the drivers to get themselves onto the grid, then we'll go for the formation lap for one final time, of course. But Phil Morby once again able to get himself that reverse grid pole position.
Yep. Mike was speaking about this actually in the break, that he'd been a bit lucky sometimes with these reverse grids, getting up there and on the pole again. So we'll see what use of it he can make this time around. But of course, it's going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be a manic race for all of the top 12, with a great chance of winning, arguably, and it's going to be a very, very busy one indeed.
Yeah, well, the final race of the penultimate round. Phil Morby, Stephen Haley, the front row, with Ross McGregor and Cam Brewster rounding off row 2. Brewster, after a mistake in round 1, could well see a podium in the final race. CeeLo Via and Dan Kell make it a Calamity Motorsport row 3, with Ryan Elliott and Adam Christopher 7th and 8th. A good result, of course, for the Court Mass Motorsport driver. Could well see him again making another top 5 appearance. Dan Hurlock, Callum Cripps round off the top 10. Matt Richards in 11th. John Monroe there in 12th. Place just in behind on the 6th row of the field. Adam Locke, Thomas Fack and Scott Sovic the top 15, with Tobias Blumschein making up the 8th row of the field, of course, and had a bit of a meh day, I think, Blumschein. Callum Wilson just in behind with Sam Dowman in 18th. Then comes Matt Allington and Matt Churgwin making it a Matt row 10 in 20th place. Only a few more drivers, of course, 3 rows left to go, with Thomas O'Leary and Ben Willis, P21 and 22. In fact, no, that's all we've got in store for race number 3. We'll bring up the rest of the cars as soon as we can before we eagerly await race number 3 in a few moments' time. But Ewan, a lot to look forward to. And, well, we're getting told there's a couple of technical difficulties. The drivers have now found themselves back in warm-up. So, unfortunately, guys, we're going to sort of leave you on an anticlimax and, well, leave you suspended in anticipation as we await, finally, the grid for race 3. We'll be back in a few minutes' time. Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen, as you join us on the formation lap, finally, for race number 3. Ewan O'Leary is in a very good mood, as am myself, Zach Sweeney, here for the commentary booth of the final race of the penultimate round of the VMO TCUK. We've already had a run through of the grid, but for those that weren't here a few minutes ago, it's Phil Morby able to take a reverse grid pole position. Top 12 were flipped on the head after the results of race 2, and we're in for one final hurrah this evening, Ewan, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. A lot of anticipation, as you said, before this race, and we've got John Monroe starting for the pit lane as well, by the looks of things, which is going to complicate things. But yeah, lots of anticipation, and yeah, it's going to make everyone a bit nervous before this, I would imagine, and it's going to be a great one. Maximum amount of drivers been reversed for this race, of course. Top 12, important one as well, as they all try and get as close as possible to Matt Richards before those final 3 rounds in the championship leaders' 450th race in TCUK.
A very important round then, as they try to stay within the margin, and well, Richards is going to try and extend the margin. 22 more laps. Race number 3 about to get itself underway, and here we go for one final time in Silverstone. It's a good start from pole position for Morby, but look to Stephen Haley to try and take the lead going into turn 1. In fact, it's an appalling start, and sees Ross McGregor catapult himself up in his second place. Beautifully done from the Rocket Sim Sport driver as we head away towards Maggots and Beckett's for the first time at this race. Everyone nicely bunched up in the background, as you can see John Monroe emerging from the pit lane in the background. Matt Richards, though, making up a place in the opening phase of this race. He's up to 11th, but more progress to come from the championship leader.
Yep, there must be, and it's all going to happen. There must be more progress for everyone here. Look at this, chasing each other to the white line there. It's, I think, Brewster and Kell. He was driving down the grass there, was Dan Kell, and now slides his way through along with his teammate via there, both of them sideways through Brooklands. Now Kell will go to the inside of Brewster. The two of them very physical with each other. Very aggressive defence from Brewster and aggressive offence now from Dan Kell as well.
Yeah, Dan Kell not want to be leaving anything on the table. Cam Brewster, of course, having a poor race 1, has been trying to make amends. He managed to get himself inside the top 10 in race 2, and well, now would like a top 5 in race 3. Matt Richards falling backwards to Thomas Fack, who's trying his best, I suppose, in favour of his RSR teammate of Dan Hurlock. We've got a big off, though, and that might well see Cam Brewster tumbling down the order, as well as a couple of others, as potentially side by side here. Hurlock goes sideways, Dan Kell tries to go the long way around, and Thomas O'Leary might be able to capitalise in it as well through the Wellington straight, and a very sketchy moment for Dan Hurlock.
What a great start it is, though, for Harlock and O'Leary as they try and put distance between themselves and Richards. Side by side for the lead as Morby tries to hold on from McGregor. Further back, by the way, Thomas Fack was the one who went off in the Infinity on the exit of turn 1. Morby has held on to the lead, and there is that battle. McGregor was alongside briefly, couldn't get through as Haley tries to get involved. This is the replay of what happened at turn 1.
Let's take a look then, and it might just well be a small twitch, and then, well, Cam Brewster just came like a bullet out of nowhere. Thankfully, everyone in behind had enough time, apart from him. Who was that? Thomas Vack, I think. Didn't quite have enough time to react. He then swerved out the way and lost the car on the grass. But yeah, not the way he would have wanted to round off his final race of the evening. And we spoke too soon for Cam Brewster, because his recovery drive to the front throughout the evening has now come to a very swift end in 21st place. But still more action to call. Morby versus McGregor at the top of the time and tower. Haley trying to hang on to the podium potentially from Hurlock in a few laps' time. O'Leary trying to make the most amount of points in this round is off the road of the background. That might be Cam Brewster again. Yeah,
it's either himself or Vac again. They're both way off the back, as it turns out, at the moment, and it was Brewster, as you said at the time. So, yeah. not ideal for either of those two. But the battles further up are very, very interesting indeed. Herlock and O'Leary 4th and 5th, with Matt Richards fighting his way through, now 8th place for the championship leader.
Yeah, he's picking his way through quite nicely again, carrying the success ballast. Even though he started 12th, he gets the ballast for where he finished in race 2, which was first. So obviously he's fielding the full 75 kilograms of ballast. He obviously also had the disadvantage of starting in 12th, but he's now got the fresh tyres to balance things out ever so slightly. I say fresh, they're fresh and softer. He's obviously taken his option race in race 3, trying to carve his way through the field, which, to be fair, he's making steady work of doing already. The next few cars are lined up for him as well. He's just got to pick them through one by one, use each one as the stepping stone of the last. You can see Sido Vaya under pressure, trying to make a move on Adam Christopher, as Tobias Blumstein tries to get himself inside the top 10 for the first time this evening. The Rocket Sim Sport car not quite able to on that particular occasion. But we've got 5 cars here, all fighting for the lower end of the top 10. As a very interesting display over the course of the first couple of laps. This is how Ross McGregor has been able to see himself into the lead of the race going into Brooklands corner. Outside line going through, a bit of contact with himself and Phil Morby. It was a good defence, but McGregor was very aggressive, very bold, very brave, and a brilliant move on the inside.
Eventually got it done, and so he's now into the lead. Is he going to be able to get away with that and take the win with almost no contest from here? Quite possibly, even though it is only lap 5. On the moment, Morby now is going to have to defend from those behind as well, though it's not that packed up behind him. It's really Thomas O'Leary who's at the front of the train a little bit right now from 5th on backwards, and this is what it's creating. It involves all 3 championship contenders as well, though I say that Herlock's getting away from it a bit, actually in 4th place, possibly looking at a podium here, which would be a good result since he podiumed in that second race as well.
Could well be. Lap 6 of 22. I'm sure a lot of people would be loving a podium. This is one of their best chances to do so with the just the chaos and the unpredictability of a reverse grid format, and of course it being race 3, everyone is either peak adrenaline or they're tired, fatigued, and want to get out of their sim rig. Side by side in the background between a couple of drivers, could have well been, I think, Sovic and Cripps fighting over 12th. Following this fight at the moment, Christopher falling backwards in the opening stage of this race, would like to see himself inside the top 10, but Blumstein is trying to go for the move on Via. I think he's managed to get the inside line going into Brooklands corner. Has he sealed the move? Not quite. The Ford Focus going the long way around. Sido Via back up the inside for Luffield, sideways from the Toyota of Tobias Blumstein, and he's unfortunately had to concede that place in the end, and Via stays in 9th place. Back to this fight though for 5th, as O'Leary is hanging on quite nicely. Oh well, it's Elliott, I should say, hanging on quite nicely from Kel Richards in this 3-way fight for 6th.
O'Leary's getting away entirely, and now Matt Richards may be staring at a 6th place at best situation in this race now. That'd be 10 points to his name, but Herlock is still relatively in contention for the race win here, and that could lose him up to 10 points, maybe more at the moment, because you do get 20 for the win, of course. So it's not ideal for Matt Richards, who really does want to extend that margin as big as possible to give Herlock as difficult a task as he can in that final race or final round of the season. Herlock looks to the inside of Haley now in towards Luffield corner. Can't do it there, and we'll have to search for another movement. It's wide from Haley there as well. Surely Herlock will be able to finish this race on the podium with a few battles and a few moves here.
You'd think so, he'd hope so. Again, maximising the points haul to make his life, well, slightly easier. Still going to be a tough ask. He's going to have to be on the pace, and his last couple of rounds of form has been on the decline, so he's going to be hoping to have a resurgence, hopefully some more motivation going into Brands Hatch GP. He'd like, of course, to hopefully succeed in that regard, or in order to seal the championship. There could well be the move for the podium, as Stephen Haley ran a little bit wide. We're going to catch it here. Herlock gets a good exit, but it's going to then be the long way round when they reach the next braking zone after the Wellington straight. I don't quite think Herlock has got the legs on the straight. Haley maybe using a little bit of hybrid deployment in a bid to defend, and well, at the moment he's defending 3rd place really well and might turn this defense into offense.
It's getting a bit dangerous now for them all, really. Especially Herlock and O'Leary who've got something to fight for here. This is, speaking of dangerous, goodness me, Sido right involved here. Christopher pushed to the outside in the multicoloured Cupra on the outside. Sovic on the inside will make up another place there through Woodcote corner. So it's all going on here. Fantastic battle for 9th place. Bloodshine is the one who succeeded though, and he's heading the group now, with Via still very much there, not too far away from his teammate, but it's a little bit less hectic up here. This is the fight for 2nd place, only allowing McGregor to get further out in front.
Yeah, he's stretching his legs, spreading his wings and flying away from the rest of the field. Herlock, though, ducking, diving, searching for a gap. Stephen Haley weaving around, trying to break the slipstream. Phil Morby under pressure, and around the outside, potentially the door opens, but it's sent the Honda Civic wide, and Herlock says thank you very much. He picks the position off, and he's onto the podium. A very nice, opportunistic move there from Herlock, and now he's eyeing up 2nd.
Yes, we'll see if he can get there. I would imagine so. Herlock has looked pretty formidable so far in this race. He's made great progress, especially on lap 1. To see him almost inside the top 5 after only a lap or 2 was fantastic news for Herlock, whereas Richards was maybe taking the more conservative approach, but in the end it hasn't really paid off for him here. He's going to lose a lot of points here. It's the championship leader to both of his main rivals, who will stay in contention for this title going into the final 3 rounds of the season. Herlock goes to a slightly wider entry, Beckett's corner. A great run on the way out here, and surely he's going to give Morby a hard time in towards Brooklands.
You'd think so. He's going to be hoping to be later on the brakes. You can also see Thomas O'Leary trying to pick his way into 4th, late on the brakes from the RSR driver. Phil Morby gives him a little bit of room, as well as a little bit of oversteer for himself, but he's able to hold the inside line going into Luffield, which should well be advantageous. But really veering off the corner there is Herlock to get a good exit, and might well see him have the inside line going into Woodcote. He gets narrowly given the space by Morby, who has just about got the speed to hang it to the outside as they reach Copse Corner. And Herlock has to stay in behind at 4 now, but definitely showcasing his intent for that 2nd place. And the sooner he gets into 2nd, the sooner he can maybe start looking to catch McGregor for the lead.
Yeah, we'll see if it's going to be possible. Side by side now for that 2nd place. Morby on the inside, it's going to push Herlock out wide there, and Herlock knew that from very early. He now trucks back for a late apex, goes for the run off the corner, but can't quite do it there. Now he'll look back to the inside all over again and try and make this move into Brooklands. He was not able to get into this situation before. Now that he has done, will he make use of it? Well, yes. Brakes late, but not too late, and he's up to 2nd place.
Nicely done from Dan Herlock. Now he's got to set his sights forward, but not make a mistake, as Morby looks intentful there to maybe fill that gap on the inside. 2.5 seconds up to Ross McGregor, but still half the race left to go for Herlock. Can he win this race? That would be a very good step forward in terms of the championship. Matt Richards not really able to make much more progress than 7th at this point in the race. In fact, has been losing time to Ryan Elliott over the course of the last couple of laps. So we'll be interested to see what the championship leader can do into the 2nd half of this race. So far, so good for Herlock. The most important thing now, though, is to get away from Morby so he can very firmly shift his focus forwards.
Yep, he's going to have to. And they're all going to attempt to do that. It's a yellow flag in Sector 1 at the moment. I think Locke has gone off the road at Turn 1, quite possibly. Don't know if we caught a glimpse of that in the background or not, but I'm going to guess not. As we go over the halfway mark in this race, Herlock's definitely pushing. I think that was a bit of a lock-up from him in towards Brooklands, and still 10 laps to go here. Maybe this isn't over just yet.
Maybe not. I still think, never say never. It's the VMO TCUK. Let's not beat around the bush. These guys are full of surprises. Always a curveball to be thrown. 10 laps left to go, though, as we say at the line. McGregor from Herlock, Morby, Haley and O'Leary, the top 5, with Elliott, Richards, Kell, Blumshed and Via rounding off the top 10. And so far, race 3 has been a brilliant display of racing action. Great respect given, but so far quite a dispersed crowd in terms of the action. I mean, we've got a quite congested fight behind Phil Morby with Haley, O'Leary, Elliott. But that's a fairly stagnant battle, at least for now. We're hoping for maybe a catalyst to kickstart the action there. It would only probably take one mistake or one move to see everyone get involved. But Herlock, I mean, he's chipped away half a second to McGregor. It's more than on.
It is. if you think about it, you cut it down as well with 9 laps to go. I mean, it's not actually that many tenths of a second per lap. Now, I know it isn't easy to make up time here. There aren't many corners and the track isn't very long. But even so, when you cut it down like that into small pieces, it's actually not an impossible ask, Herlock, to get here. But I think McGregor's going to have a bit too much. I think he will be able to hold on to this, but you just never know. Herlock may set his sights on a bit of a fastest lap charge, because that would get him an extra point. And of course, it might cut down the gap to McGregor as well, if he goes for that fastest lap. So let's see if that transpires. But yeah, it's 2 seconds at the moment. The battle for third place is the one with real interest, although Morby is even getting away now as well.
Yeah, he's been able to sort of stretch the advantage ever so slightly. I'd say Haley and O'Leary, they could work together and could close the gap maybe for a podium. That would be more mutually beneficial, but only one of them is going to be able to get onto the podium. But O'Leary so far hasn't been able to sort of hold back so far this race. I think he's been very offensive and in the good way. Obviously, he's not been offending these drivers, he's just been attacking them quite a lot, and he's now looking to attack maybe for fourth place relative to Stephen Haley. And I think maybe in O'Leary's head, he's the one who he thinks is the best one to lead the charge forward, especially maybe as Matt Richards is closing in onto this battle behind.
Yep, certainly going to be there very soon, and well, is there right now as well. Ryan Elliott looking for his way through at the moment, and O'Leary's just finding himself stuck now, just getting in a bit of a pickle really with this, because he's been behind Haley for a little while, seems a bit stuck, and now he's got Elliott and Richards right behind, so this is not ideal at all, him being in this position. By the way, McGregor extends that gap to Herlock, so I think hopes for a battle for the race win are going to go away, and I think the podium places are mostly settled as well.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that for the most part, the race has sort of just died down to a standard, which is not the way we wanted to round off the evening, but we've still had some fantastic racing between now and the end. But never say never again. We've got O'Leary and Haley battling away still, and a mistake, wheel issues, we've seen them time and time again. Let's remember this is motorsport, and not to push that, something is going to happen, but I'm just saying there is a chance that it could happen into the final couple of laps of this race. We're already on to lap 16 of 22. These laps are flying by. Naturally, it's less than a minute per lap, but yeah, this race really does go by in a flash. I suppose time does fly when you're having fun. For McGregor and Herlock, though, it's going to feel like an absolute eternity. The gap plateauing between the two of them, now 2.1, so it's sort of McGregor gains, Herlock gains, McGregor loses, and just a little bit of to and fro between the two of them. I don't quite think Herlock's got enough time or speed to close the gap for the lead.
Yeah, I don't think so. There's only 6 laps to go now as we go over the line. The main interest is going to be here. O'Leary's still stuck behind Haley, and it's really a bad place to be. I don't know whether he's staying behind in the hopes that they can maybe get Morby if he does that, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Just don't think Haley really has the pace. Goodness me, that was a slide from Matt Richards. He absolutely can't afford to lose the car entirely. Now O'Leary goes down the inside and gets through, but I think that was a little bit too late really. Morby's still not out of reach just yet. Maybe O'Leary will be able to grab the bottom step of the podium before the end.
He'd like to. That of course would make this evening 2 podiums for Thomas O'Leary, and some good points as well going into the final round of the championship. He's got to have some good wit about him though. He's got to have the pace, and he's got to attack Phil Morby sooner rather than later and put the Ford Focus under pressure as soon as possible, because again, time is not on his side and is not something to be taken for granted. You can already see though, within a couple of car lengths of Morby, he is not waiting around at all and is taking this opportunity with both hands, already putting a couple of car lengths to the cars behind, and 5 laps remaining. I'd say he's the favourite for that final place on the podium.
Well, it's hard to pick a favourite at the moment. In my opinion, it's going to be quite close to the very end. John Monroe's made his way up to 18th after starting from the pit lane. And Cameron Brewster's made his way back to 19th. That's very impressive from him. Oh no, that's a slide. John Monroe not enjoying the Toyota through Copse Corner there, and neither was Dowman either. Sam Dowman was in a bit of trouble there around the Copse Corner. So Brewster up another place to 18th. John Monroe back down to 20th again as the fight for the podium really does now ramp up. Final 4 laps of the evening. Just another chance for O'Leary to gain another 2 points to his tally and get that little bit closer to Matt Richards, who has chance to gain his own points here, don't forget.
Yeah, he does definitely well do. Well, I'm sure it's not quite the 450th race send-off that he'd have liked being in 7th, but he's still got to manage to get a win on the 450th race week sort of evening, so at least there's that, I suppose. But still opportunities for him to move forwards, of course, especially if anything happens in front. This is the move potentially for the podium, though. Thomas O'Leary, after a good exit out of Copse Corner, has the outside for Maggots, but going into the braking zone, it's not quite materialised itself into the inside line that it potentially could have been. I think more just setting himself up for this run right here, hoping to take a slightly tighter line and get a better exit compared to the Ford Focus ahead of him of Phil Morby. Thomas O'Leary, a little bit of hybrid deployment, could see him take to the inside. We know he's not at all scared to press late on that brake pedal, but no movements as of yet to round off lap 19. But he's only got a few more opportunities left to go. He's got to take one of them.
Yep, he does. So very close to the back of Morby is Thomas O'Leary here. He's attempting to make his way through. At the moment, it's not been possible. Still plenty of time though. Will there be a chance here towards Copse Corner? You just see him showing the nose of half of the car, but not the other half, and not putting off Morby either. So he'll stay behind again. Morby goes wide through Copse though, and it's only inviting more pressure.
It is, and it's not pressure that he would be welcome to see again. He fights with O'Leary, Haley, Elliott, Richards, potentially even Dan Kell all get involved. I'd say a bit of a stretch because there's only a few laps left to go, but that could happen if they fight too hard. But again, it's a podium place. You don't want to let him through. You want to fight it tooth and nail. And, well, it's third or nothing potentially for Phil Morby, who's wide going into Brooklands. A bit of a slide, but it's actually not been too bad in the end. But there is Thomas O'Leary still giving it a good go around the outside as we start the penultimate lap of the final race of this evening. O'Leary with a good exit, but Phil Morby still doing a decent job at keeping him at bay.
Is a very good job. In fact, still a long way to go in terms of, well, I know it's not a long way to go, but it will feel like it for Morby right now, because that was a good line through turn 1 for O'Leary. Oh, very nearly got to the inside as well, very nearly got that overlap, couldn't quite do it. Now will there be one on the outside? Yes, just about. Now he's pushed Morby offline. He won't go all the way around the outside here, but he will come back to the inside. Fairly difficult to do in the Honda, but will he get the traction off the corner? Yes, he certainly will. The fact that we can't see Morby is a good thing, because it means he's alongside down the Wellington straight. The two weave around, and Morby does have his nose in front on the way in.
Beautifully done. He takes the racing line and he stays in third. One more lap left to go here at Silverstone, and the fight for the podium is coming down to the wire. O'Leary wants it dearly. Morby, after getting that reverse grid pole, would like to seal the deal in terms of a podium. Fights up and down as well. We cut to this fight a little bit further down as Matt Churgren goes wide and opens the door for Willis to potentially have a little bit of a look, and picks his way through, and Churgren goes a little bit wide on the exit as well. But starting the final lap, here's the fight for the podium. Only a couple more corners left to go essentially in this race.
Alongside now, looking for the inside is O'Leary, but knows he can't get there, and Bloomshine's gone off the road as well. Seemingly a DNF on this one. Not ideal at all. Final chance now for O'Leary. It's not looking like it's going to happen. Wasn't even alongside it towards Brooklands on that penultimate lap, so surely it won't be any different on the final one. The Honda with good legs on the Wellington straight, and now it looks like O'Leary's going to run out of laps to make this move.
I think so. Unless he has an absolute miracle of a run through Luffield, it's not quite going to be enough. But to the front, Ross McGregor for Rocket Sim Sport has made the most of the reverse grid of race 3. He comes across the line to win in Silverstone. Beautiful display from the Toyota driver. It's Dan Herlock in second, making some good points, but a side-by-side run to the line. Is it going to be Morby? Is it going to be O'Leary? Nothing separating them in the end, and it's Morby that takes the final step on the podium. Only 2/100ths of a second in it, a quarter of a tenth between the two drivers. Absolutely sensational for the final race of this evening. We'll have a quick run through of the final results when we get them in a few moments' time. But Ewan, what a way to cap off the evening.
Yeah, fantastic race there at the end. O'Leary couldn't find his way through on Morby, and so only reduces his margin to Richards to 52.5 points by my calculations. But Herlock is now only 33.5 points away, needing 34 at the final round to take the title.
Ross McGregor taking victory of race 3 with Dan Hurlock, as we say, making a very important step onto the podium in second. Phil Morby, after a hard-fought fight with Thomas O'Leary, takes third, with O'Leary in behind in fourth. Stephen Haley rounds off the top 5 with Ryan Elliott and Matt Richards on his 450th race in 7th. Dan Cowell, Scott Sovic and Callum Wilson round off the top 10 for Richards and Co Racing. A double top 10 for them in the final race. Also in race 2 sees them seal the deal in terms of the team's championship. They could not be caught going into Brands Hatch, so a big congratulations to them. Will they seal? Both, with Matt Richards a few points ahead going into the final round. Cedo Via in behind, Callum Cripps as well, just in 11th, with Adam Christopher, Matt Churgwin and Ben Willis, the final point scorer of race 3. Cam Brewster in 16th, with John Munro, Sam Dowman, Matt Allington and Thomas Vack, the top 20. And in behind that, I believe, the 2 DNFs of Tobias Blumsheen and Adam Locke. Ewan, all 3 races were just full of successes, and I think the perfect setup going into the final round. I think all eyes are on both Dan Hurlock and Thomas O'Leary.
I think so, and I think they're the only ones who can still win the title from here. 4th on the way into today was Callum Cripps, and finished behind Richards multiple times tonight. So at the final round at Brands Hatch GP, it's going to be about those two, as Matt Richards has signed off here from the TCUK Championship and sim racing in general with his 450th race here in this series. Hurlock needing 34 points to take the title. That's right in the balance as well. It's right in sort of, to be honest, I would give him a 50-50 chance of getting there as well. It's right in the balance for me as to whether he can get there or not. Can't wait to find out.
Yes, well, we'll wait for a couple of drivers just to have a quick cool down. They'll hopefully come and join us in the broadcast waiting room, and we'll have a quick chat just to cap off the evening. But yes, in a couple of weeks' time, that long list of tracks that will all become greyed out, and all eyes are on our second visit to Brands Hatch for this season. We've got a couple of drivers in the broadcast waiting room, so we'll grab them in obviously when we can. We've got John Munro, Phil Morby and Ross McGregor. I suppose we can start with John Munro. A good start to the evening for you, John. Obviously that fantastic battle you had with Dan Curl over the course of race 1, but it seemed that it peaked a little bit too early, and race 2 and 3 could have been better.
It did indeed, yeah. I think, yeah, race 1 was really good. Dan had a little bit more pace than me. He was really, really dialed in this week. So I was just basically stealing his toe and staying in behind him and just trying to, use the draft to keep myself in a position to fight. And then penultimate lap, I finally kind of made my move, but just couldn't quite get it done. So I had to slot back in behind him and defend P2. But honestly, really happy with that result because Dan had the pace, so that was it. And then, and unfortunately, actually, in race 1, Ross suffered a weird glitch where he got a drive-through for nothing. So that was a bit of a shame for the team. But then in race 2, yeah, I was hanging on in 3rd place, just made one small mistake, missed an apex, and when you get out the train at this place, when you've got, 2nd position weight, it's just impossible, and I just dropped way down to, I think, about 7th after that one mistake, just losing a position every corner, and then I got pushed off, and yeah, just, as you say, didn't go so well from that point onwards. And then race 3, it actually, with all the restarts and everything, going constantly back from warm-up to race to warm-up, I actually didn't realise that the race was loading in, so I just heard all the cars going, and then I just said to Ross and Toby, I was like, oh, is the race started? And then, yeah, it had. So, yeah, that was it. Starting from the pit lane, and had a really good fun battle with the guys towards the back, but obviously just didn't make up as many places. But yeah, for the team, it was a decent night. 2nd for me in race 1, a win for Ross late on, and Toby would have had a good race 3, but literally had a game crash in the last lap. So, yeah, one of those mixed nights, but it's been enjoyable.
Definitely, and some good points as well in your championship battle with RSR in the teams. 1 round to go though. You looking forward to capping off the season well?
I think on behalf of the team, yes. So I personally am not going to make it, sadly, because the rescheduled race, I've got I'm at a wedding that night, so I won't make it. But main thing is, we've got Cedo coming in to take my place, and he's a brilliant driver, as you would have seen tonight and last week. So he'll do a good job along with Ross and Toby. And the main thing for us really is securing 2nd in the teams. I think Ross has been the highest scoring championship driver for the last 4 or 5 rounds. He's been super, super quick and consistent. So hopefully, he can carry us up there. But yeah, just because it's my last race, just want to say thanks to all you guys for the broadcast. It's been brilliant fun to watch back all season. Really appreciate it, and yeah, thanks to everyone I've raced against, because it has been a lot of fun. I've been pretty terrible this season. I'd not felt great with the car, not at the best pace, and nowhere near as many victories as last year, but it has been good fun battling everyone. So yeah, just want to say thanks.
Awesome stuff. Well, it's been a pleasure to have your company in the commentary booth, and hopefully we see you back if/when we go again for next season. Thank you for joining us, John, and well, I'm sure you'll be wishing your teammates the best of luck in Brands Hatch from the sidelines.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. John Monroe, second place in the evening in race 1, but unfortunately that was the best he could muster. Next up, we'll take a chat with Ross McGregor next in the interview room. And Ross, not a bad way to round off the evening, it must be said. Good job.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. The race 1 was going to be difficult because I was on mediums and had a little bit of weight. So I was drifting backwards, like down to 7th or 8th or something like that. And then I just got into a wee I got kind of barged off at turn 1, which is fine because I was able to kind of keep the position. But then R Factor 2 said, give the position back to the other cars, which I did. And in the following corner, I got a drive-through penalty for unknown reasons. So that kind of scuppered race 1 and race 2 as well, because obviously I started 19th for race 2. So after that, it was just a case of trying to work my way forward and try and get a reverse grid, a decent sort of position on the reverse grid, which I did. And then start of race 3, it was a really good start. Got up to second, and then had a couple of goes at Phil, and I got running him, and then I tried to just run away out front while saving some battery for later, which I needed because Dan Hurlock was on my tail, and he got about half a second on me. But the last couple of laps, I opened the taps a little bit, had a bit of extra battery left, so yeah, I extended the gap, which is fantastic. So yeah, it's nice to get another win, but yeah, it could have been a lot better.
Yeah, but a win, all right, it's fine. You will take it. Good points as well in the championship fight for second in the teams. You must be hyped and, well, motivated in a couple of weeks' time when we go to Brands.
Last season at Brands, I finished 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the 3 races, and John finished like 1st and 2nd in the first 2 races. So we did well last year, so hopefully we can kind of continue that this year. And as you say, 2nd place in the teams championship is what we're going for. I don't know if I can get 3rd in the drivers' championship now, but I think I might be 4th, and there's always a chance I could finish 3rd. So yeah, I've got to try and aim for that. So fingers crossed.
Nothing to lose. Just send it, go for it, and hopefully we'll see you back in the interview room in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Ross McGregor, winner, of course, of race number 3, and some good insight into his battle along the way. Finally, of course, though, let's have a word with the man himself, Matt Richards, who won't be taking part in a couple weeks' time at Brands Hatch, but for good reason, as he's just surpassed a very huge milestone of 450 races. Matt Richards, of course, you managed to cap it off with that milestone in race 2 with a victory and potentially enough points as well to win the championship. Not a bad send-off.
Yeah, it's pretty good, eh? Yeah, it is a fun round. It was quite unprepared with some rig things that were going on in the last couple of days, but yeah, just glad I made it. Decent haul of points. I think I managed to keep the gap to Dan about the same. So we might have enough points at the last round, but I'm not too sure. Dan's scoring really well and consistently, so don't think it'll be enough. But yeah, it's been a cracking battle all season.
It has been, and obviously you've done a lot of races. You must have a lot of highlights. Do you reckon you can pick out a couple? Have you got a standout moment that's one of your favourites from your sim racing career?
Probably doing the triple at Croft a few years ago. That was a big one for me. But I mean, winning the teams championship tonight with the Richards and Go guys, we've put a lot of effort into this season, and it's nice to finally cap it off. I've done the other 2 championships, and it's the last one that I wanted to do to tick off the list. So it's nice to go out on a high and end it with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you take your very earned rest from sim racing. You've had a mega run, and who knows, we might see you back in the future as well. And well, good luck, I suppose, for the championship, even though you're not driving. Should be a good one. I'm sure you'll be watching along from the sidelines when we go to Brands.
Oh, definitely. We'll see.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you for joining us, Matt, and best of luck for the future.
Cheers.
There we go. Matt Richards then, race winner this evening and potentially champion in a couple of weeks' time. We'll find out. But Ewan, just give us a summary of that evening, because, as I say, as far as penultimate rounds go, I can't complain.
I mean, where do you start with that? It was very interesting indeed. Very, I mean, there were no huge moments for the top three in terms of a big drama. You know, one of them massively crashing and falling by the wayside or whatever. But there was a lot of great racing in that, and I think Silverstone National always provides that. To be honest with you, it's a fantastic venue for a round, especially at this end of the year, and it set us up beautifully for that finale. It's a finale that the likes of which I've never really seen before, to be honest with you. I've never seen the championship leader having to watch on from the sidelines, just hoping that he's going to become champion by the end of the season. As I said earlier, it makes life a bit easier for us, to be honest, because and it makes life a bit easier for the drivers as well, really, knowing the amount of points that they need to accumulate in those final 3 races. But it's going to be one not to be missed, and can't wait to get back in a couple of weeks' time for that final round.
Yeah, don't miss it, ladies and gentlemen, watching along at home. It's been a pleasure to talk you through the action here in Silverstone. You are not going to want to miss the championship finale of the VMO TCUK Championship of 2023. It's been myself, Zach Sweeney, Ewan O'Leary, alongside me in the commentary booth with Mike Yao pushing the buttons behind the scenes to deliver all of the amazing action. A couple of weeks' time, it will be us back in the commentary booth. We are very much looking forward to seeing this amazing championship come to an end. In the meantime, ladies and gents, that is going to round up our coverage, but do take care and, well, bring the popcorn, because it's going to be an absolute belter. See you then, take care, and goodbye.